And on today's show, how Veralytic can be part of your due diligence process. Part 5 of this week's series on product due diligence with nationally recognized product due diligence expert, Barry Flagg, CFP, CLU, and CHFC. Hi everyone, I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and contributing author to Backroom Technician and Innsmark. Let's get down to business. Well, welcome to day 5. Wow, 5 days with Steve Savant, and you survived.
It's been fun.
Listen, if you've missed any of these shows, I really want you to go back out and watch Monday through Thursday in chronology. I think it'll really help your learning experience because you really need to we kind of laid some basic groundwork, and now we're going to go out to Barry's site and look at exactly what he has. And by the way, a little side note, when we go out to the site, go ahead, Barry, put us on a site. When we go out to his site, we're going to look at, you're going to be able to get a free example of the full report. It's really great. We're going to show you that in a moment. And also, if you become a subscriber, you can go 90 days. You'll be a paid subscriber. You'll be paying into it. But if you're not completely satisfied after 90 days, Barry will cheerfully refund your money, and there'll be no harm, no foul. I think you're going to fall in love with this, and I think you're going to be using this as a closing and as an entry and a closing technique into new clients. Barry, walk us through here. We're on your site, Veralytic.com.
Veralytic, correct.
Okay, and walk us through when we come to your site, and by the way, there's that sample report you could download, so you can hit that and look at that. I'd print it out. I love the color, by the way.
Thank you.
And it's really easy to read. I thought to myself, well, how hard is this? So I gave it to somebody else to read that's not into due diligence like you and I are. And they said, oh, Steve, I got this almost on the first pass.
Yeah.
So that's what I really liked about it. It was easy to user-friendly.
Yeah. We particularly hear that from the CPA, tax attorney, trust officer community. Investment folks, it's a natural for them. I've got a story, if we have time, you can cue me up later about a hedge fund guy who told one of my subscribers he never wanted to talk about life insurance, and my customer used a sample Veralytic report to open up a conversation that he wasn't able to have for 20 years.
Wow.
On the site, we talk a little bit about who we are to provide some background. What are the solutions and products we offer? Our core offering is the Veralytic report, which we'll come to in just a second. We provide a library, Steve, of our past e-news articles. We publish something usually twice a month in addition to a ratings report. And then any industry news, and we mentioned vocabulary. We produce a glossary that helps non-financial advisors reconcile, what is a PUA, what's all the insurance nomenclature, and then translate that into the common financial terms that are used in the Veralytic report. I speak a lot and talk a lot, as maybe not as much as you, Steve, but close. And then whenever we get a question, we post it to the website to try to make our user experience more and more favorable. But the core of our offering is in the user's account. Everything, including the sample reports, is available to non-users, non-subscribers. Everything. The only thing that's behind the firewall is the customer's confidential client information. And so we've got a dummy account here that we use at trade shows, and we can look at a real-life report here. Every report consists of an executive summary, an analytics page, the actual source data, which is the illustration itself, to include all the cost representations, and then a user guide and a glossary. The user guide is the same in every single report. Each report measures the 5 basic factors of suitability. It's the same 5 factors that almost everybody in your audience has talked about with advisors and clients over time. Financial strength and claims paying ability. Many people talk about the premium. What's the premium, as if the premium is the cost. We've talked about it at length in the previous 4 days. Premiums are not the cost any more than $2,000 that I put into my IRA is the cost of my IRA. The cost is what they take out of my $2,000. So we're measuring the actual underlying cost competitiveness against everything in the database to know whether or not we're close to best available rates and terms or whether we have an opportunity for improvement. We also then measure the stability of those pricing representations. Does the carrier have a track record of maintaining their pricing, or do they advertise one price at issue and then increase pricing down the road? Lastly, we measure policy cash values or access to policy cash values. If everything else was equal, access to cash values would be a beneficial thing because it's easier to make changes in this ever-changing world we live in. And then the last thing that we also talked about on an earlier day, which is the most antithetical to me, clients put $2,000 into an IRA for a grandchild, and they ask, does the investment manager have a good track record? And they put tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars into life insurance and never ask, what's the actual historical performance of invested assets underlying cash value? So we measured that too.
When we come back from the break, we're going to talk about an actual report, show you exactly what it looks like, and tell you how you can register. We'll be back in about 30 seconds. Back in the day, life insurance professionals were called field underwriters. Then, carriers trained their field force in the basics of life insurance underwriting. Today, the insurance industry doesn't educate the agent population as they once did. But now you can have the Informed Risk Guide at your fingertips so you can illustrate a reasonable rate class for your life insurance prospects. Just request your copy of the Informed Risk Guide at downtobusiness.ashbrokerage.com. It's free from Ash Brokerage, the practice enhancement company. Back to the break. Of course, I'm with Barry Flagg from Veralytic, and he's walking us through the software that we're using for due diligence. And it's a step up of what we've been doing. But before we get into it, I want to talk about registration. Just show us real easy how easy it is to register.
Very simple. From our homepage, and as I mentioned, the only thing you have to register for is access to the measurement in the database. Sample reports, marketing material, all that other stuff is available to anybody in advance so that you can use that to go out and get referrals before you actually register. But to register, you simply click on the register button, enter your personal information. Do you want to receive our ratings alerts? Do you want to receive our e-news? And then do you want to actually sign up for access to the database? And you just click here and continue, and you are signed up. You'll get an email saying you have a workbox on our server. Here's how you submit reports. It's that easy.
How big is that database?
Biggest database of pricing and performance information in the United States. It's got tens of thousands of data points in it from tens of thousands of illustrations. The reason why there's not a finite number to it is because every time somebody submits an illustration for their purpose of getting a measurement against what's in the database, it adds to our database. So it's an ever-growing, ever-learning database. So it's not a finite number.
Well, Barry, show us an example of the report and walk us through it.
Sure. So we talked about the executive summary that provides the talking points, that provides the narrative, the explanation of why a policy is rated 5 stars, 4 stars, 3 stars, 2 stars, or 1 stars. And by the way, a 5-star policy is, in Morningstar vernacular, a 5-star fund is always better than a 4-star fund because they measure one thing. As I mentioned earlier, we're measuring 5 things. So it could be that if your audience is working with a client on an estate planning sale, and cash value is not important to the purpose of their plan because it's tied up in an islet, it could be that a 4-star policy is every bit as suitable or more suitable than a 5-star policy. So the executive summary provides the narrative for how to match up product features or product attributes with client objectives.
Okay.
And then the graphs page, which is what we're looking at here, provides the proverbial picture's worth 1,000 words for the conclusions described in the executive summary. You can bring this report and talk about this section of the report with CPAs, tax attorneys, and trust officers and get referrals because very few people know what they're actually being charged. Very few advisors know what their clients are actually being charged. In this particular case, and this is not to pick on any particular carrier because we said before there's 80,000 pricing combinations and permutations. So this is not to say that one carrier is good or bad. This particular product in this particular situation has pretty much average pricing. This column here is the total cost of this policy per dollar of death benefit. This column here is the total cost of everything in our database. Blue is cost of insurance charges, red or maroon is expenses, and yellow are the loads. So as we can see here, finding the low cost of insurance charges are the way to develop new business, and you can even get paid a sales load, which is infinitesimal. The Veralytic report puts the sales load or the commission in the context of total cost. You can get paid a commission to go find lower cost of insurance charges.
Now, when I'm looking at this, is this what we're walking through, just this basic idea in front of a fiduciary, and he can see that per dollar of death benefit,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Okay, and is that the new, because that's a kind of a very thing that's, I would say, is very germane to your software, because everybody's doing other calculations per dollar of death benefit. Is that easy for a person that's not really in our business to understand that is the way to talk about it?
Yeah.
We're going to have to convert some of the way we speak.
Yeah, it has been to me. Where that per dollar death benefit actually came from, Ben Feldman used to talk about selling insurance as paying pennies on the dollar. So you pay pennies and deliver a dollar. So this talks about insurance in that same vernacular, where this particular case, for a 62-year-old male, non-smoker, at 62, he is paying present value about 15 cents to get $1 of death benefit delivered to his family.
So that's his total cost all in. That to me is kind of a revolutionary. I mean, it shouldn't be, but it's somewhat revolutionary in our thinking, because I don't think people are looking and measuring expenses. But the bigger the case, and especially if you're trying to influence a CFP, or I'm sorry, a CFO or his accountant, or if you're talking to a trust officer, this is what I think they will understand. And this is easy. It's all graphed out. It's in. I love the color, by the way, and I think it's easy. Now, talk to me about this before we close out the show. Give me this idea here. What am I looking for on this square here?
This square reports on will do best. So some policies, for instance, like we talked about last night, in accumulation or income scenarios, because you are in your design minimizing the death benefit, therefore minimizing the cost of insurance charges, those policies with higher cost of insurance charges are okay for wealth accumulation or distribution if the premium loads and the M&Es, if it's a VUL, the premium loads and the cash value-based charges are low. That is a policy that will work well in the accumulation phase. In a defined death benefit scenario or plan design, cost of insurance charges are the total driver. And so you want a policy that has low cost of insurance charges and low expenses. This simply provides a way to have a conversation without having to get into all that technicality, provide a conversation with a CPA, tax attorney, or trust officer to say, look, the reason why this policy may not be as cost effective as you thought it was is it wasn't designed for it. So let me help you go find one that's designed for it.
Well, again, you can go out to Veralytic.com. You can go ahead and register for 90 days. You can go ahead and throw all their reports. If you're not happy, they'll refund your money. And on top of that, remember, you can get that free sample report so you can get an idea what it is. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Remember, before moving forward with any of the ideas on our show, always talk to your tax advisor, legal counsel, or your broker-dealer compliance officer. Missed an episode? Just hop out to downtobusiness.ashbrokerage.com. And remember, you could be wiser as an Ash Brokerage advisor. I'm Steve Savant. We'll see you next week.